So President Obama has got some new gun control executive orders planned.
And here's how to sound smart about it.
So apparently there's a limit to how many mass shootings President Obama can see happen in America before he finally acts, and that number is several thousand. And so now he's got some executive orders planned because Congress, which is supposed to be leading the way in dealing with the nation's problems, has decided that this is not a problem, or not a problem that they think they can fix, or not a problem that they care to fix. And so
or
now
they feel too constrained by the gun lobbyists and things like that.
They like it. They like being constrained. And so he has a number of different executive orders. There's 30 of them. I'm not going to go through all of them, but we're going to talk about a few of the larger ones, and then we're going to give you our idea of whether or not these are a good idea and what they could possibly do to fix the problem that we have as a country. So first, the federal government will issue guidance that will narrow who can sell guns without a federal license based on an evaluation of the circumstances surrounding individual gun sales. So who can actually get a license to sell guns? The idea is to reduce the number of for-profit dealers as opposed to regular people, collectors, people who only give or sell guns to family members or friends who avoid background checks. In addition, the FBI is going to hire more than 200 more people to help run background checks because there's just so much demand in this country to get the guns that they don't have enough people to run the background checks. And that leads to problems where after 3 days, I believe it is, if they haven't given the results of the background check back, then the dealer is free to sell the gun. Seems like a terrible idea.
Seems like the worst idea.
Dylan Roof, who killed 8 people, I think it was. I might be getting the numbers wrong there. His background check wasn't completed in time. Not just because they didn't have enough people. In this case, there was a clerical error. And so the gun was sold to him without a completed background check. And so they're hoping to fix some of those problems in the future. In addition, the Department of Health and Human Services is going to change a rule regarding health record privacy laws to remove barriers to states providing mental health records to the background check system. So obviously there are a lot of privacy laws when it comes to your healthcare information and your history, with good reason. That should be private information. But when it comes to potentially leading to murder or suicide or mass shootings, that information should be provided for this limited purpose.
It's like a red flag issue, in my opinion.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, well, red flags that they search for but don't have the information to actually discover, they're going to try to fix that in some states. They're also going to change it so that guns that are lost or stolen on the way to the buyer are going to be tracked more easily by law enforcement. Seems like a good idea. And then they're also going to fund more research into technologies that can make guns safer, largely to reduce the risk of accidents. Like when a kid finds the gun and shoots himself in the face, which happens all the time in America. Yeah. I think that's a tragedy. I know that that's not a universally held belief in this country.
I think it's 500 deaths a year are due to a child.
It's amazing when you talk about technology to make guns safer, almost nothing gets a more visceral opposition reaction from gun owners than making guns safer.
Right, making guns safer, same with the background checks and all of it. People get so upset. I feel like these are all good ideas, and if you are a law-abiding citizen who just wants to uphold your Second Amendment right, you should have no problem with this.
Well, the one thing that people don't generally have too strong a reaction to is the background checks, where 90 to 93% of people are in favor of expanding background checks. Pretty much the only people that are against it at this point are the members of the House and the Senate, mostly Republicans, but some Democrats as well, and then the board members of, I guess, Smith & Wesson. They don't like it. Ruger doesn't like it. But most people do actually support that.
Right.
And then there's varying levels of support for other sorts of gun control. But the problem is this is one of the issues where an extremely loud and angry and not even particularly well-funded minority can dominate the discourse on a topic. Because they care about it a ton, and for some reason the rest of the country, we care about it in the immediate aftermath of a well-publicized mass shooting. But after that, we lose interest and we start talking about ISIS again.
Yeah, and I think from what I've heard, a lot of the opposition is saying that it's impinging on their Second Amendment rights. And they're saying, well, this is what it says. This is what the Constitution says. We can't make any sort of edits to it or anything like that. I'm like, okay, but we edit free speech a little bit. You can't yell fire in a theater. There are certain little things. And the Constitution was written 200 years ago. And if you're okay with making edits to your Bible and saying you can eat shrimp cocktail, you should be okay with making a few edits so that mass shootings don't happen.
The right to bear shrimp shall not be infringed.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, the idea that the Second Amendment has anything to do with personal ownership of gun laws is an idea now, but it was not an idea for something like 170 years when it comes to the Supreme Court. That's a very new interpretation of it that very quickly disseminated through some activists in the Supreme Court and around at the lawyers to the NRA and then to their members. And the NRA suddenly became this organization that was principally concerned about the Second Amendment and making sure that there is no restriction on guns in any way possible. Whereas for well over a century, that's not what the purpose of the NRA
It says
was.
you can bear arms. It doesn't say you can just get free guns and do whatever you want with them.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what it says.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
in different words.
I can't imagine why anyone would be against the expanding of the background checks to include online and
Or
private
gun
party
safety.
Like literally right now, if you are a felon, a violent felon, you get out of jail, you can buy a gun online, and there will be no background check. Who could possibly want that other than somebody who stands to profit from the selling of guns?
And even if you're not a felon, even if you're just like a regular citizen or whatever, and you want to buy a gun to protect your family or whatever, how could you not want safety features on it? Like
Because
the fingerprint and all the other things that they're trying to implement. Like, I don't understand what the negative effect of that would be.
Well, I mean, I think the NRA doesn't like it because they don't like the idea that guns need to be made more safe. They think that guns are the things that make you safe. And gun owners don't like it because they say, well, what if the 1 in a million chance I go to use my gun and the safety feature means that I can't use it? They're bothered by that. They're not bothered by the
If
1 in a
it's
million
your
chance that their kid shoots their
fingerprint.
face off with the gun, but they are bothered by the chance that if a band of goons comes in their backyard, they can't shoot them.
Although, band of goons, that seems to be an epidemic that Obama forgot from his speech.
That's true. Also, I think that it has band in it, but I think that's a good name for a band. Band of Goons. I'd go. I'd watch that.
I read a book called Visit from the Goon Squad.
Similar.
Yeah,
Similar
very
concept.
similar.
It's in the same sphere.
Also dangerous.
Yeah. So look, I think that this research needs to be done. Now, people they don't think that Obama should be doing this. They think that he's overstepping his authority, and there's a possibility that in some of these he might well be. But the president is also in charge of, to some extent, the safety and well-being of the country to a limited extent, and this
thanks,
is how
Obama.
he's pursuing that. It would be great if it wasn't just him, if the Supreme Court
Right.
hadn't made some of the decisions they have in the past, like with Heller in regards to D.C., or the Congress, which seems completely disinterested in doing absolutely anything about this, and isn't even made to question. I tweeted out this morning, like, when you put to a candidate, why do you think that a violent felon should be able to buy a gun without a background check? I don't think, maybe I'm stupid, I don't think there's a reasonable response you can give to that the system should be kept the way it is. But they're not forced to answer that question, and so they're able to hold ridiculous positions so long as they don't have to be public with them.
Right.
I
Well,
don't
you
see why
should
you'd
be
want that.
asking the hard questions.
I'm asking them right now. Why should they be able to buy those guns?
All the
Anyway,
politicians are actually watching Think Tank currently. I mean, I think
Exactly.
that's where they get most of their news, like
Ted
everybody
Cruz.
else.
Ted Cruz. And I'm going to go on the record as saying I don't like you. So I'm going to be just the last
Well, I
of
feel
your
like now
popular
you're
culture
pissing
interests.
off our audience.
Maybe. But it's hard to be Ted Cruz because he keeps saying things that he likes, like the Princess Bride, Family Guy, Snoopy, and all the creators of those things say, fuck you.
So now you're
That's
hoping
gonna
he'll
be a rough
say
way to
he'll like
live.
Think Tank and you can be like, haha.
Maybe.
We
I
got
want-
you
I want
too.
fans. Anyway, obviously this is an incredibly serious topic. We don't often go into stuff this specific in terms of policy and seriousness.
But it's important.
But it is extremely important every day. Literally, as we were filming this video, statistically, a couple of people were shot who didn't necessarily need to be. It's an epidemic in our country, one that we have unfortunately grown very accustomed to, but not one that we can't sort of open our eyes to the reality of every day. So let us know what you think about these executive orders. What would you do to help curtail some of this gun violence? Let us know down below, and we'll see you in the next video.